welcome to one of your favorite TV shows right here on KBN TV, the finest television. I'm talking about Labor Matters, and this program comes to your screen every Sunday from 14 to 15 hours. And I'm super excited to be here because we have an interesting topic which we want you, our viewers, to be part of. So if you are watching us on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV, please do feel free to send us a comment. Just tell us where you're watching this particular program from. And I must make mention that in the studio I'm not alone as usual. Remember that Labor Matters, it is a KBN TV and Mr. Owen Kabanda's program. And today I make mention that we are looking at an interesting and yet important topic. And I'm talking about mental health in workplaces. That is what we are looking at today. You're watching us live on DSTV channel 279, GoTV 27, Top Star 102, and live on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV. So I think some of you are eager to call in and text and just give us your comments and contributions about the topic of discussion. But please just hold on and we get to read your comments, your text messages, and pick some of your calls. As I mentioned earlier, that this program, it is a KBN TV and Mr. Owen Kabanda's program, and he is in the studio with me right now. Good afternoon, Mr. Kabanda.
Good afternoon, Patricia. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very, very fine. Long time.
Long time indeed. Good to see you.
Glad to be here.
Amazing. For some of you who are watching Labor Matters for the very first time, Mr. Kabanda is management and a leadership advisor as well as international speaker, not forgetting that he is a neuropsychologist. So today we are looking at an important topic, issues to do with mental health in workplaces. And I believe some of the people that are watching us are eager and waiting to learn and listen to what we have for them today. Maybe just to start, basically there might be someone who's maybe listening or hearing about mental health for the very first time. If you can just define what mental health is all about.
That's very true, Patricia. I know that sometimes when we talk about issues of mental health, the first thing that comes to mind in a lot of people's minds is, oh, they're now talking about China. No, that's not mental health. I remember in some of the trainings that we were undertaking for managers, and this issue came up, and we were talking about having policies in place for mental health, and someone said, has it become so bad that now employees are becoming mad? No, that's not really what mental health is all about. So mental health, you are basically looking at the state of the mind, your emotional well-being as a person. Remember, there is the physical aspect where a lot of people go around jogging, exercising, going to the gym. In the same manner that we pay a lot of attention to our body, it's the same way we should start paying attention to the brain. Because remember, the brain controls a lot of things about your life, about the human being's life. So in terms of mental health, you're basically looking at how do you take care of the brain, how do you take care of your emotional well-being, and basically just your whole well-being so that you can actually remain sane and live a meaningful life, which you can contribute to society.
Amazing. You mentioned to say a lot of people, when you talk about mental health, the first thing that would come to your mind is this person is mad.
Exactly.
This person needs to go to China and whatnot. But why is it so important, mental health in workplaces?
Yes, so mental health is extremely important because, like we've said, if you lose, and I'll use a general term like you have lost your mind. If someone loses that ability to be in control of their mind or the brain, then you start having some challenges in terms of functioning. You find that someone will go into depression and they can no longer do the work as they will be expected to do. You find that someone is very stressed because of all that anxiety. It leads them to behave in a manner that maybe is aggressive towards others. Or some other people, out of all that anxiety, they just withdraw. from everyone, so they are no longer effective in the workplace. Basically, when your mental health is not taken care of, you cannot expect you cannot expect an employee to be effective. So issues to do with mental health are extremely important if we want to get the best out of the employees, and that's why it's important that they are prioritized in workplaces. If you are a manager, you have to make sure that your people are taken very good care of, so that they can then be productive. Otherwise, without that focus, you'll find that you are giving someone work, and they could be there. If it's in the office, they are looking at the screen, and the guy is just blank, he's just looking at the screen because he can't concentrate.
Yeah.
So it's important that we pay attention to some of the things that have to do with mental health.
Now, if we can also talk about some common stresses of life outside workplaces that can affect an employee's mental health, what are some of the common stresses that you can point at, you being a neuropsychologist?
Yes, so when it comes to mental health, there are key things that we have to start understanding. That for a person to operate very well, they need to have some level of support. They have to be in a supportive environment. Because the brain is quite fragile in as much as we think. I remember the time that we were doing our practicals in psychiatry, and we had China, and the doctor said, we're looking at these people in a common man's language, you say, oh, they have gone mad. But all of us can actually end up like that, because the brain is very fragile. It just takes a certain thing to stress you, and you end up not being in control of your brain. So when it comes to the workplace, it's not, like you've said, it's not just the things that happen in the workplace that could stress an employee. It's also the things that happen outside of the workplace that could actually stress an employee. So it's important that if you are in management, for instance, you have a full understanding of these things that happen around employees. If we look at things that could stress an employee outside of the work environment, it's things like even to do with financials. When you look at the person, you have bills to pay, and you find that some people, because of their situations at home, they have a lot of money they have borrowed somewhere, and the people they borrowed from, they are following them, and that starts to make this person not to concentrate. It will affect them even at the workplace. There are issues of, medical issues. An employee could be having some challenges. It could be the same employee going through certain medical challenges, or it could also be an issue where a loved one is sick. Maybe their child is sick. So while this has nothing to do with work, but that employee who is constantly worrying about that child who's sick at home, the husband is sick, and they are even seeing that this man who provides for us is about to die. And that definitely starts to affect that employee. It could be that certain things have happened in the family, or there are bereavement, somebody has died. Those things could stress an employee. Sometimes there are things to do with just social issues or marital issues. You find that an employee who is married, maybe now the husband is starting to behave in a manner now that starts to stress this woman, and maybe he now got some money, now he's all over the place. So those things could start stressing that female employee. It could be also a man. You find that, even the children that he has been raising for 15 years, they are not his children. Those things could stress that kind of an employee. There could be so many things outside of the workplaces that could actually lead an employee to really be stressed. So remember, these things, when they are happening in the life of an employee, it's important that at the workplace they can receive some form of support. Now we'll talk about those things, but what we want to emphasize is that an employee is a human being who operates in a society, and they are a social being with all these connections that they have, so those things that happen around their lives could actually stress them to a point that those things start to affect the way they behave and perform in the workplace. So never overlook those things. And I know, and it's a good thing that you brought it up, because remember, in management, some of the things that we like to say, oh, when you report for work, leave your problems at the gate.
Yeah.
We're very clear about those things. Keep your personal problems to yourself. When you report for work, leave your problems at the gate. You come here, we expect you to smile, we expect you to concentrate, do what you are required to do. It is the way that corporations operate. Of course, companies want to be profitable, they want a high productivity from the employees, so most of the times there isn't much of concern about your personal issues. So your personal issues, leave them at the gate. You report here, do your job, smile as if nothing happens. But what we are saying, especially to management, is that if you are in management, you should know that in as much as there is such a slogan for people to leave their problems at the gate, the fact of the matter is that they will still have these things when they come into the workplace. As long as things are happening at their home, these things will still affect them. And that's why it's important to just, I always emphasize, be kind to everyone. You don't know the kind of problems that they are going through. Yeah. They can be smiling because they have to smile, but they're going through a lot.
You mentioned a slogan where a lot of organizations would say, leave your problems at the gate. But we also have maybe some types of stresses that usually comes in with work. If you may just maybe talk about one of the types of stressors that employees might face when they're at work. And I must also make mention that we carry stress from workplaces to our homes. But why is it that we carry stress from work to home and we cannot carry stress from home to work?
Yeah, well, there's always that thing that you do with your life. So yes. Even when you have stress at work, yeah, it's okay, carry them at home, but not the other way around. But so when it comes to the workplace itself, there are a lot of things that could actually lead to stress. Now, there's something that I need to make very, very clear, and this applies to both stress, things that will stress you which have nothing to do with work, which are not work related, as well as things that stress you which are work related. There is, when you look at stresses to do with human beings, there is what we call the ideal, and then there is the reality. Yes. So many of the times when things are happening in people's lives, it's because when a person goes through a certain thing, there is an expectation that certain things will happen in the ideal way, which is almost what you call the standard. Now, what are these things we are talking about? For instance, if you finish your high school, you went to college or university, after you finish your university or college, there's an expectation that you land yourself this very nice job. You start making money. As you do your job, eventually you may even end up becoming a boss and things of that nature. That's the ideal. But the reality could be that even after finishing 3, 4, 5 years, you're still looking for employment. So when the reality and the ideal are not matching, it leads to what in psychology we call cognitive dissonance. Now, this cognitive dissonance is what really messes us up, because a lot of times we have the ideal that we are looking at, but the reality could be different. You say, okay, if you went into a relationship, you expect the ideal is to escalate to marriage, but maybe that never happens. Even when you are married, as a woman, maybe you expect to have this husband who's always there supporting you, but maybe when you actually get married, the husband is behaving in a different manner. The same thing happens. Your husband, you expect you receive all this respect, the wife will be there and all that, but then they do something else. So there's in a lot of situations in people's lives, there is the ideal and the reality, and sometimes these don't go together. And that is where that cognitive dissonance comes in, which is what leads to this stress that we're talking about. Whenever the reality does not match the ideal, it starts to create stress in people. So these stressors, like we have said, when it comes to the employees, those stressors can be coming from outside of the company, or they could be within the company. Now, coming to your question around what could be some of the stressors, say, in a work environment, we could talk about maybe in 8 or so different areas, and I'll explain to you. Number one is at the strategy level. At the strategy level, the company is saying this is the direction where we are going. So strategically, we expect every employee now to start working towards that strategic direction and to make sure that they deliver on those things. Now, sometimes it so happens that in certain institutions, they change this strategy so many times. Yeah. Some institutions don't even have strategies in place. So it's about how the boss wakes up, and now we are going left. As the employees trying to apply themselves, the next thing, no, we are going right. And things keep on changing like that. Now that sometimes leads to frustrations in employees, because a human being wants to feel that when they work, there is some kind of reward, even psychologically, that they have done a good job. But when they do the work, and then the next thing, because we are changing, going this way, and even where we are changing, it's not even clear where we want to go. Yeah. That starts to make things very difficult for employees. Around the same issue of strategy is an issue around structures and systems that you're going to have in an institution. Now, you find that sometimes certain institutions or certain businesses, they don't even have very clearly defined structures of who reports to who. You find that you have, as an employee, you have 3, 4, 5 people you're reporting to. Each person is demanding their own work. They expect you to do this work, while the other person also expects you to do this work. And that sometimes leads to a lot of stress in employees, because then in terms of how they see their work being valued, it becomes a challenge. So at the strategy level, which also affects the structures, it's important in institutions that these things are made very, very clear. And when a company doesn't have ways of making things internally, they can always get consultants to help them. The structures thing also affects even the job duties. The duties, you see, when you have that structure, you have the boxes, and those boxes, the duties need to be clearly defined, so that the person can work towards what is expected of them. Second level, you look at the policies. This is under the umbrella of governance. For instance, we'll say human resource governance issues. HR governance, you're looking at the policies and procedures that should be there in the workplaces. Now, some of the businesses, again, they don't have any policy in place, despite the fact that even the law under the Section 95 of the Employment Code requiring companies to have policies and procedures in place. Now, what this does, if a business doesn't have policies in place, it now becomes who smiles more to Patricia. Yeah. So if you are the supervisor, you have 5 of us, it's, I like this one. Oh, you can go on leave. Oh, this one can't go. Oh, we can give you salary advance. This one can't get. No, this one, I think you can go for this training. This one, because you don't have policies in place, which clearly defines how the employees are going to be managed. So, apart from just having the policies in place, we also talk about the practices. Sometimes we have companies that have very well-written policies, but when it comes to practice, it is something else. The managers are practicing something else, which is not in their own policies. So there is some level of favoritism. It's about who likes who. If you go to play golf with a boss, maybe you are the one who will be favored. Or if you go to the same church with a boss, or you're coming from the same tribe and all those kind of things, which should not be there in the business. So at HR governance level, you see those kind of issues becoming stressors. The third level to talk about is things to do with salaries and benefits. Now, it's very common that salaries, when an employee works, there is an expectation that they get paid. So starting from the salary itself, in certain cases, salaries are not enough. So that sometimes becomes a challenge. But the employee will work because they really need this job. Sometimes it's the time that this salary even comes. This month you got paid on 15th, the other month it is 21st, the other month is 23rd or 28th, the other month. You can't run a business like that. That stresses employees because they have financial obligations. You know that you maybe have those standing orders or those things that you sign for the bank. Some employees borrow money from somewhere with the idea that they are going to pay on such and such a day. And some of these people who lend money, they will even tell you, you get, let's say, 5,000, you are going to pay 50%. If you pay it before 21st, maybe there is no payment, or maybe it is 10% or so. If you go beyond the pay date, the date you agreed, you are going to maybe pay 50%. Such kind of things are happening. And you can now imagine you got some little money, at the end you are paying 50% of that. And if these things delay even more, you find that now the employee is more stressed because you may find that now what they owe is even more than their salary. Yeah. So the pay days are extremely important to be well defined, and where you're going to have a challenge as a business, you engage the employees so that they understand. Sometimes they can negotiate things. Apart from salary, it is also even just the benefits that we talked about. What benefits are you having in the company? The law has defined some of the benefits that should be there. But again, like I mentioned, even with these benefits on leave, maternity, paternity, family responsibility, sometimes it's how now the company starts to apply these benefits, where sometimes it's done selectively, or even for the employee to access that same benefit. It's a very stressful situation. They have to go through a lot. They have to sing and dance, even when it is just their right. So it's those things become also sources of stress. The other aspect to look at, the fourth one, could be now on performance management. Sometimes when it comes to performance management, there are also sources of stress for employees, because if the targets are not well set, if the supervisor is not monitoring and supervising and supporting the employee, it becomes a source of stress for the employee, because sometimes the employee doesn't even know what they're doing. Today you ask them to do this, the following day, well, why did you do this? Were you not thinking? The employee is now disoriented. They don't know exactly what they should be doing. So when it comes to performance management, when we talk about this issue, we are now saying companies need to make sure that they have done their level best in putting things in order, so that employees can know how they are working, even how they'll be assessed at the end, and if there will be rewards that will come. Maybe the fifth issue to talk about is training and development. Again, we see these as some sources of stress for employees, because you find that maybe an employee, for instance, doesn't have a certain skill or a certain capacity. They require to go for certain training, but maybe that training never comes. Again, sometimes there's those things that we talked about in terms of favoritism. Within the training, you see that some people go more for trainings, others are left behind. So how have you structured your training and capacity building for employees? So those things also sometimes become a source of stress. Maybe the sixth issue we can talk about is discipline management and grievances also in workplaces. When it comes to discipline, how are the employees actually, first of all, have the employees been told the do's and don'ts in this company? Do they know what is not expected of them to do, or what is expected of them to do? So do you have a disciplinary code? So sometimes, because just supervisors wake up and they are shouting, oh, today, go home, I don't want to see you. The other day, no, this one is fired. If you don't have an environment and policies and these processes to follow, those things also become a great source of stress for the employees, because they don't know what will happen to them tomorrow if they will even have this job. So grievance procedures also, if they are not put in place, they are not clear, an employee will have all these stresses, but they don't even know where to go. The boss could be abusive, but the employee doesn't know where they could go. An employee could be doing certain wrong things, but the employee doesn't even know. I mean, a fellow employee is doing something else which they're not supposed to be doing, but the employee doesn't know where they can go. So you could have those kind of problems. So when you look at the whole lifespan of an employee, a lot of areas in the workplace actually do have the potential to bring about stresses for an employee. And so it's important to look at all these things, including the area of recruitment and promotions, where employees could see that their friends, some friends are being promoted, and they don't know how these people are getting promoted. If, for instance, an employee is hardworking and maybe they even have the papers, and then they just find someone who everybody knows in the department that this one just relaxes, but that's the same one who tomorrow is being promoted. So those things could be a source of stress for employees.
Well explained, Mr. Kabanda. To our viewers, if you are just joining us, you're watching Labor Matters right here on KBN TV, and we are looking at an important topic, and we want to hear your views. All you have to do is call using the number which is right on your TV screen, or better send us a text message, or better again, go on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV, and drop us a comment. What do you know about mental health? Have you been in a situation in your organization? You want to know how do your organization handle issues to do with mental health? We want to know all that. Or maybe are you maybe in a situation where you always break down when you're at work because you are stressed, you have a lot of work to do and you don't know how to do it. We want to know what is going on in your lives when it comes to issues to do with mental health. And in the studio, I am with the unemployment expert and a neuropsychologist, Mr. Owen Kabanda, is also employment, as I mentioned earlier. Mr. Kabanda, considering these stresses which you've just mentioned, now what role do employees themselves get to play in managing their stress as well as mental health?
Yes, so again, mental health issues, I really do believe it is your serious responsibility as a person, as an employee, to make sure that you're really taking care of yourself. It is not something that you leave to somebody to manage for you. Now, this is not an easy thing, as much as it appears like it's an easy thing. So one thing that we do encourage employees, even for those that come for these trainings and even therapies, it's important, first of all, to understand yourself. That's the starting point. Sit down and do an evaluation of yourself. Who am I? What are the things that make me happy? What are the things that make me sad? What are the things that stress me? You need to do some level of introspection. Again, you can do this at a personal level, or you can go to a specialist who can then help you with some of these things. It's important, first of all, to have a full understanding of yourself, because with that, then you can map out a plan in terms of how you manage yourself going forward. Second issue to look at is, how do I take care of myself? Now, we talked earlier on about the way people take care of themselves physically. It's very easy for someone to wake up, they go jogging, you see people, especially in the mornings, you see people running around. If with the same energy, it's the same energy we should now be investing in our mental health. What that means is that, what are the things that you need to be doing? There are certain practices that help you to calm down. Start reading about that, or go to a specialist to help you to see how do you calm your mind. How do you actually start thinking about your own thoughts? You reach a level where you actually have a thought and you are thinking about that same idea that you are thinking of, and you are challenging it. How do you reach a level where you are able to change certain thought patterns in your mind? Because there are certain things that when you start thinking about it, it starts to stress you. You could be smiling, but all of a sudden you remember something that was happening, or you remember this person who has been pissing you off, and your mood just changes. Yet that person was not even there. You think about your boss who has been making your life a living hell. All of a sudden you are home, you are watching TV, your mood changes. You are in church, all of a sudden your mood changes. So how do you start to change your thoughts and to manage your thoughts to a point where you can choose what thoughts you can actually focus on? Because at the end of the day, you should be knowing, this is why we said the first part is to understand yourself. to a point where now when you start going in a particular direction, when you start thinking about certain thoughts, now change of thoughts, again, this is not an easy thing, because I know we are talking about these things. When it comes to therapy, for instance, in cognitive behavioral therapy, you start learning how your thoughts affects your feelings, which could affect your behaviors. So it's like a triangle like this. So you have to start learning how your change of thoughts could affect the way you feel, which could affect your behavior. So instead of thinking about something in a very negative way, which could lead you to withdraw and because you are feeling very bad, you start mastering your mind to start thinking about positive things. Or even a same thing, there's always a way that you can shift from thinking about the same thing from the negative to the positive. Again, these are things that you can go for some sessions, and you are helped in terms of how do you actually manage. And that's why you find that you have some people who become very good with this. And I'm not talking about masking. You're under a lot of pain and you're just masking it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your ability to switch, your ability to say, I'm not going to continue thinking about this. Or even if I think about it, what could be the positive in this? So that it helps you with your thought patterns. So at a personal level, as an employee, it's important to understand themselves. It's also important to see what ways can they use to calm themselves down. Also, it's important to also understand what are the things, like we said, which are stressing you. So if it is work, so we earlier on talked about things that could be outside of work, things that could be to do with work. If it is outside work, how do you manage that situation? How do you keep yourself busy? But also, how do you recognize? Because sometimes it's not just a matter of keeping yourself busy and that thing is still happening. It is a matter of looking at it and how do you think about differently so that you can still remain normal and do your work. If it is a work-related issue, maybe it's a work colleague that is stressing you. How do you handle that? Or do you need to go to some supervisor or to bring this issue to and report this issue? Do you need the help of HR? So it's important to, if it is your own supervisor, sometimes it becomes a challenge because maybe the person who's actually stressing you is the actual supervisor. Now, we have said it before, you can't go to complain about the malaria to a mosquito. So if that's a situation, if there's someone higher than this person who you can go and discuss these issues with, okay? But even before you think about airing your grievances to a higher level, there is always a way to engage your immediate supervisor or your line manager and discuss those issues that could be a concern to you. Because sometimes even line managers may be doing certain things without knowing that this thing that they have done or the way they are talking to you could be hurting you. Sometimes they don't know. So it's about engaging them. But if you see that even after engaging them, nothing is happening, there is always a way that you can escalate issues to their supervisor. But again, you have to also be very careful because sometimes some supervisors could have already painted a certain picture about you to a point where when you go up to complain, they are already saying this one is a problem. So be careful, but at the end of the day, as an employee, I always say, look after yourself because you are on you. Find if the work that is you are being given is becoming too much, engage your supervisor. Maybe they also don't know that the work has become too much. So that sometimes you find that they can even spread the work with other employees. So,
Mr. Owen, you've explained well on how employees should handle stress as well as mental health. Now, speaking about employers and supervisors, what role do they play in managing or maybe play in supporting their mental health? Because I believe if you are at work or in any organization, when you are going through certain stress, you did mention to say you have to know who to talk to. But in situations where you try to talk to your supervisor or maybe your employer and they're not doing anything, how can employees go about it? What should they do?
Yes, I think on the part, I'll start with the part of the supervisor or the line manager for a person. Really, it's important that also, and these are things we always teach in our management classes, you have to consciously invest in knowing your team members. You need to study the people that you're working with, because if you have this employee Jane who is always jovial, and then all of a sudden you are seeing they are withdrawing, you should be able to see what could be the issue here. So first thing, the line manager needs to invest in learning and understanding issues to do with supervision, management, and leadership. Secondly, pay attention to the employees that are within your area of supervision. Sometimes there could be so many. I know the way I'm talking like this, it's like a one-on-one. Sometimes you have a number of people that you are supervising. But even with a lot of people that you are supervising, there are other people that have that delegated authority to supervise those people. So even then, just pay attention to every level. For direct people that you are supervising, pay attention to them. The other aspect is to also look at the workloads that you are giving the staff. Ensure that you spread your work to the staff in a manner that is manageable. We are not saying you give people less work. No. Companies are created, for instance, to make certain profits. In certain areas. It's about giving a particular service and things like that. The key issue is make sure that the employees are receiving a fair level of work and not being, at the end of the day, stressed and burning out and things like that. The other aspect for line managers is also to kind of give support to the staff. Sometimes if you observe that the employee is struggling in a certain area, engage them. Understand what could be the problem. Also see how best you can support them. Sometimes an employee just needs some time off because maybe they are going through certain things. So you will see how you reorganize the work and give that person that time off that they need, maybe to attend to a sick child or to sick husband or father who's died, whatever it is that they need, so that they can literally see that they actually value that work. Sometimes some employees actually don't need to be away. There are employees who go through these stresses of life, and actually it works for them to be in the job because that's what keeps them busy without thinking about maybe certain things. But it requires you as a supervisor to be supportive, to know what is needed at every particular time.
Now, what about human resources? What role do they have to play in issues to do with mental health in organizations?
I think for HR, it's clearly about issues that we talked about, ensuring that the company that you are running, it has the right policies pertaining to employee welfare. Make sure that the policies do exist. But again, like we've said, having a policy is one thing. It's also making sure that the managers and the supervisors are trained and they know what to do. Also, the employees know what to do. So that when employees are going through certain things, these policies are actually being implemented. And for HR also, it's an aspect around, I have to emphasize issues of confidentiality, because sometimes, you're in that privileged place where employees go through a lot of things, even from home. They have personal issues, others have chronic diseases, others are going through divorces. And in many institutions, employees open up to HR. Okay, you know what, I'm failing to work, but there's this issue that's going on. But HR, if HR people are not, keeping that confidentiality, it becomes a problem. So apart from these policies we're talking about, trainings, we are also emphasizing that HR needs to make sure that the aspect of confidentiality is heightened. Because once an employee comes to complain about certain things stressing them, and the next thing you are now telling everybody, that it's not only painful for the employee, it also erodes any confidence that they could have in the whole HR department and the institution as a whole, because then they feel betrayed, that They gave you certain privileged information, which you have now ended up sharing with everybody.
Amazing. You've just reminded me. I have a friend, let's say a friend or Facebook friend, whatever. This person had a write-up on her Facebook page to say, I opened up to this particular person about what I was going through at work, and this person wanted to tell everyone.
Yeah.
And truly, that, I don't know, it's just that feeling, because you cannot trust anyone.
No,
you cannot. So
no. It's a very bad thing actually for HR, especially HR practitioners, and also even just line managers. This doesn't just end at the HR people. Sometimes it's the manager who receives certain information. They can always, find ways to manage certain information. Not to a situation where now, when the employees seem to be struggling, because they are going through those problems. You can even see now the way she's reacting to everyone. Now are we the ones who caused this problem? But you are eroding every confidence that this person had in you to share certain things that were actually bothering them.
It's more like it's a situation where you're saying, I don't care what is going on as long as you do your job.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Now, what about the management team, Mr. Kabanda? How can they promote mental health?
When it comes to the entire management for an institution, again, it's the same thing that we have been emphasizing. Apart from the issues of policies, it's for managers and leaders of institutions to practice, compassion. Practice, your management practices should be those that show that you support your staff. Make sure that you create an environment where people feel they are valued, feel that if we are not just being used as tools, there are certain words that people in some management will say which actually demoralize employees. Where an employee would, hey, I don't care, whatever, just give me my work. Even when the employee is trying to say, look, boss, this is the challenge I'm going through. So if you create an environment where an employee feels you don't really care about them, eventually employees also start to reduce what they are giving you in terms of their productivity, because then at that point, they don't see the need to go any extra mile. That's where now you create these problems, which we call like the wheelbarrow mentality. You say, move this thing from point A to B. The person will just move it, whether there is water, there is what, they don't care. And if you try to shout, they'll simply, boss, you are the one who told me to move it to point B, that's it. So, because at that point, the employee doesn't care and doesn't feel that they need to invest their thoughts into the welfare of the company. And that's why, as management, it's important that they create an environment where people feel valued and supported at all times.
Now, do we have any other key points that you think are very important for our viewers who are watching us right now to know just about on how to address issues to do with mental health in workplaces?
Yeah, basically, it's like we've said, it's important that mental health issues are prioritized in companies and institutions, organizations, to the point that employees feel that there is some level of support that they do receive in this company. It's important that employees feel that whenever there is an issue, they have someone they can run to. Again, issues that we've talked about, even issues of confidentiality, being upheld by all people who are in management. I can also talk about work colleagues apart from management. As work colleagues, again, let us ensure that we are also supporting one another. I did mention at the very beginning that human beings are social beings and they thrive in an environment where there is support. So let us be supportive to our work colleagues. If you know something about a work colleague, don't start using that against them, because like we said, it is very depressing for a lot of people. If you see your friend is going through certain challenges, be out there and support them, because we spend, employees spend a lot of time at the workplace. So for work colleagues also play a critical role in creating an environment where employees will feel they are valued, they feel supported. And that starts to reduce these stressors of life, and it actually adds to a better mental health workplace for the employees.
Amazing, Mr. Kabanda. It's been an amazing conversation. But before we read some of the text messages which we just received from our viewers, there was a write-up in the newspaper, Newsdiggers newspaper, must make mention by Mr. Chaliafia Katungula. I believe you saw the story, and maybe you might have read it with a caption: "The battle of the extremes, the battles of the extremes and the stigma associated with mental health." That was in the Diggers newspaper. I believe you read the story. Maybe if you can just give us a brief so that the viewers can also understand where or what contains in this particular story, then we get back to the text messages.
Yeah, so when I was reading this story, it's a very common story that actually happens to a lot of people. This gentleman, he has talked about a lot of things where he was working in Kawambwa, and the cooperative had some challenges in terms of paying him for a couple of times, and afterwards, long story short, I think he stopped work, and he started now going through a lot of problems with the family, with his wife, to a point where the wife would even come in. There are stories there are parts in that story where even the wife is seen talking to other men, and basically where the man is like quite disrespected. And he's talked about a lot of things that he had to go through, the challenges of him trying to keep up to remain sane, how he was in Ndola, and the support he was getting from the therapist. And he's basically talked about the fact that the people that we see in Chainama, in the mental health institutions, these people, we shouldn't be laughing at them because they need the kind of support. And it's talked about a lot of very, very sad things. And I think people can read that story for themselves. But it goes to show how employees or just anybody can actually have these challenges. The person was working, but he couldn't receive the payments on time. Then he even went on to borrow from these loan sharks and so on, and it made his life quite miserable to a point where he actually lost it. But he's received a lot of support. And I think at the end he has talked about some of his colleagues that he has lost who have actually committed suicide because they couldn't handle it. So issues of mental health, not only in workplaces, but in families and communities, they are very, very important to look at because, and you know, we always say that if you have a wound physically on a part of your body, people can actually feel sorry for you. They can come forward because they can see it. But the issues of mental health, they happen inside. There are things that people can't see. So you'll be there really dying, you're going through a lot of pain, but people don't see it. So let us be kind to one another and support one another.
Amazing. Indeed, mental health issues are very, very important, and we must take care of ourselves. Like you mentioned, it's just unfortunate that we usually just like, it's just one of those things, and I'm gonna be okay. I will just pretend as if nothing is happening. But indeed, issues to do with mental health really need to be taken care of. And I must make mention that it has been an amazing conversation, and thank you very much to the people that have watched this particular program. But before Mr. Kabanda, we have a text, but it's not in line with our topic of discussion. So this person is asking how much in a 4-star hotel a worker should, I think this person is trying to ask how much should a worker in a 4-star hotel should get, because hotels do not give domestic wages. Labor officers should visit such places.
Okay, yeah, so that the issue of salaries, those are things that we've talked about a lot in the past. Yeah, so what we can advise you and anybody who's watching, first of all, just go online and download the Minimum Wages Act, the revised one, which shows you the salaries that employees will be getting, those who are covered under the minimum wage. From January 2024, the law is very clear about that. So just download it, just Google minimum wages 2024. It will show you the salary for a general worker. For a general worker is sitting at 2,313 kwacha teningwe, and it goes on also for security guards, drivers, receptionists, qualified clerks, and so on. So go through that and see what applies to you. There's also minimum wages for shop workers. So again, you can download those things and go through. Now, there are also certain collective agreements that are signed. So it's important also to take note, depending on your industry and the collective agreements that will be applicable in your industry or what applies to your company. Again, it's important to know what the salaries could be under the Industrial and Labor Relations Act. Over and above, where you have a challenge and you see that your employer might not be paying you salaries which are in line with the law, you have the right to go to labor office and really find out. In most of these places, there are offices for labor office. You can also just even go online and check out their numbers, their contacts, and then you can get in touch with them and report whatever issues you might have pertaining to your company.
Well explained. Now, Mr. Kabanda, as we wrap up this conversation, what would you say is the most important takeaway for organizations regarding mental health?
The biggest takeaway is, number one, have policies in place, not only on mental health, but all policies that are required by law. Again, if you don't know how to do these things or you have no capacity to do these things internally, get consultants. Secondly, apart from having the policies, it's an issue that we've talked about, that management practices should be in line with the required standards, meaning that ensure that the way you manage employees in institutions is one where employees feel valued and they feel supported. All those that have the responsibility to manage others, supervisors, line managers, managers themselves, directors, they should make sure that they manage employees very, very well. Lastly, it's really just a matter of ensuring that the business balances the business needs as well as employee needs. This is not an easy thing, but if you simply make it clear that these are objectives as an institution which we want to achieve, you also make sure that the employees are being taken care of, so that you create that environment where people are working and they know what they're working towards, so that you can actually now create that environment where when they achieve what you have set, you can appreciate them, you can reward them, but more so, and what is important is you create a supportive environment. That's what we can say.
Mr. Kabanda, thank you very much for making an appearance on your program, Labor Matters, right here on KBN TV.
I greatly appreciate, and thank you so much to everybody that has been following us. A big shout out to my colleagues on TikTok. They have been keeping me very busy with a lot of questions. But thank you also to LinkedIn family and those that have followed me on Facebook. It's always a pleasure. And even when I go around meeting different people that we have connected with on social media.
Amazing. To our dear viewers, you've been watching Labor Matters right here on KBN TV. Remember, Labor Matters, it is a KBN TV and Mr. Owen Kabanda's program, which comes to your screen every Sunday from 14 hours to 15. And please do make sure you make a date with us next week, same time, same place. So today we're looking at an important topic, mental health in work places. That's what we were looking at today. So please, let's keep this conversation going by going on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV, and drop us comments. Tell us what you think about this topic. I have been your host, Patricia Chilamikwa, and in the studio, I was joined by Mr. Owen Kabanda, who is Management and Leadership Advisor. From me and the entire production crew, it's good afternoon.